PFL Africa 2 this Saturday from Johannesburg, South Africa. In the main event, we have got a matchup in the featherweight division. Patrick Ocheme takes on Mohamed Camara. A really fun fight at 145 pounds, and some really fun names on this card as we dive as deep as we possibly can into African MMA, African regional MMA. 10 fights in this card, the second PFL Africa card, but the first ever purely devoted PFL Africa matchup card. Of course, the last one had Champion Series fights with Johnny Eblin, Costello Venstinas, Dakota Ditcheva, Sumiko Inaba. This card is straight PFL Africa, again, on Saturday morning on the PFL app. And before we get into the video, folks, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more PFL and UFC content here on the channel. Yesterday, we posted our UFC Fight Night Dolidze versus Hernandez full card predictions. That is linked in the description down below. And later this week, we will have our best bets for this card as well. Make sure to check that video out on Greedo Plays MMA later in the week, probably on Wednesday. And go check out the main channel, Greedo Plays, Daily MLB Best Bets, College Football, NFL, NBA, College Basketball, all coming soon to that channel. Okay, on to the first of our 10 fights tonight. We kick things off with a matchup. By the way, I had no odds on all of these. I can't find any odds yet. Our first matchup comes in the welterweight division. We have got Desmond Tamungang taking on Kunle Lawal. I'm going to be going with the fighter out the Cameroon. I'm going to be going with Desmond Tamungang to win the fight. I don't know if Lawal is going to be able to fight on the ground against this guy. Everything I have seen out of Lawal, very green, 2-1, a guy who I think could be decent. But again, limited training. He's from Scotland. But just 2 fights ago, he lost to a guy who's 2-5. My thing with Lawal is, and we are going to go through this here with PFL Africa, and that's going to be every regional PFL card, like MENA and like PFL Pacific in 2026 that we're going to see. You just got a lot of guys who might not be cut for this level just yet. I don't think Lawal is there yet. You know, this is a guy who's had 3 fights professionally. One of them is a loss to a 2-5 guy. Coming off a win over a 0-1 fighter. Has shown a decent striking game. But this is a guy who's 11 or 12-7 on the amateur scene, which is okay because, of course, amateur fights don't mean anything. You know, it doesn't hurt you to fight on the amateur level. But this is a guy who I don't think is going to be able to fight well on the ground. I think there's a clear advantage for Desmond in this one. This is a guy who has multiple submission victories, 2 of them in the past. Another fight was finished on the ground due to ground and pound. Again, neither of these guys have fought in big promotions so far, but Desmond is 5-0 professionally and does have a ground game. I think that's going to be something that's going to set him apart in this fight because Lawal has shown in the past, at least what I've seen out of him in the 3 fights that he's had, purely striking, nothing much else. It hasn't really been tested on the ground against a good grappler. So everything to me says that Desmond Tamungang from the Cameroon's going to win this one. He is a much shorter fighter, and he's going to be the first of a couple fighters we're going to see out of the Francis Ngannou camp. I think it's just a Francis Ngannou funded camp, if I'm not mistaken, in the Cameroon. We're going to see another fighter later on the card who's also from that Ngannou camp. Desmond's going to be much shorter in this fight. He's been giving up a lot of inches in height. Lawal 6'1", Desmond 5'9". I still believe he's going to be able to win this one, and I do think he wins it by submission. I think there's a clear grappling advantage for him, and I'm going to go second round sub to kick off the night for Desmond Tamungang. I think he gets it done by second round submission over the Nigerian-Scottish fighter in Kunle Lawal. Okay, on to our second bout of the night. Let's go to a matchup here. Don't have a picture for the Kongan fighter in Sadeck Yemba, but we've got a matchup here in the featherweight division. This is an alternate fight as the last one that we just picked between the last fight we just picked between Tamungang and Lawal was the alternate fight at 170 pounds. This is the alternate fight at 145 pounds. So again, same format as PFL MENA, 2 brackets, actually 3 brackets because we saw it on the last PFL Africa card. But yeah, these are the alternate fights. We've got Abdul Razak Sankara taking on at Sadeck Yemba. You got Sankara coming out of Burkina Faso, now fighting out of Cote d'Ivoire. I believe that's how you say that country. I believe that's in Europe. I could be mistaken. I think that's close to Ireland. No, I have no idea. I used to be really good at geography. Anyways, he's taking on the Congo's own in Yemba, now training out of South Africa. I look at Abdul Razak Sankara. It's just, I don't know, he's lost to quite a bit of guys. He's 6-3, which again, that's not a horrible record, right? 9 fights in, you've lost half, or you lost a third of them. But everything I've seen out of Yemba so far in the limited tape that I can find out this guy, really good grappling, which I honestly think is going to set you apart from some of these guys in the PFL Africa promotion because a lot of these fighters that I've watched are pure strikers. A lot of them. And we're going to get to a big example next of just a pure grappler in the next fight. I don't know if Sankara is going to be able to compete. He has shown some ground abilities in the past. I just believe Yemba's better down there. And I've seen Sankara lose on the ground before. I believe it was his first fight that I watched that he got subbed in the first round. But he's not, I don't know. It's just, this is a guy who's 6-3, coming off back-to-back finishes via ground and pound. I just like Yemba better. This is a guy who's undefeated, has fought in EFC too, which is a much more credible promotion. EFC, I could be wrong. I'm not the biggest into the African regional scene, but at least I know this from, studying the career of Gigas Duplessis and all these guys from South Africa. EFC is like the biggest and most well-known promotion in Africa, and obviously PFL Africa is going to do a great job in pumping up the African MMA scene. But if you fight in EFC, I know EFC has its fair share of guys who aren't very good, but at least that's a credible promotion. I can, watch those fights, and those are guys who we know are half-what decent. So Yemba's gone over there. He's 4-0 in that promotion. Back-to-back submission victories via the Anaconda choke and a rear naked choke in his last fight over Steven Goncalves. I just like the grappling out of Yemba in this one. I think Sankara is going to be decent enough on the ground, but ultimately I do just think he's going to be... I think he's going to be outclassed in this one. This is a guy who's lost 3 times before. He's been subbed before. Will Yemba get the submission? I'm going to go no. I think it's a decision here because I think, again, Sankara is going to be good enough on the ground. This is a young fighter as well, and Sankara from Burkina Faso, 24 years old. I'm going to go with the fighter from the Congo, though. I'm going to go Baba Yaga, Shadrik Diju Yemba to win the fight by unanimous decision. Okay, moving on to an interesting one. Our third fight of the night is a tournament bout in the featherweight division. I want to introduce you to Elbert Pikachu Steyn versus Abdurraham Errachidy. Yes, this guy's entire gimmick is that he likes Pikachu. I'm so serious. I don't know if it was his last fight I watched. I believe it was, where the ring announcer does the introduction for Elbert Steyn, and he does. I'm not gonna try. Trust me, I'm not. He says, it's like it's pretend like you're Bruce Buffer, right? And you're Elbert, Steyn, but in between he says Pikachu, and he says it in the Pikachu voice. It caught me so off guard when I watched his last UFC fight. Anyways, this is a guy. Let's call it how it is. Not peak male performance here. However, this is like nothing. Like, I'm not going after the guy. If you look like that though, you have to be good at fighting at this weight class. Oh, and he is. So Steyn told things that he's a grappler. He's not going to strike with you. Okay, he's immediately going to look to get the fight down to the ground. Right. Really good submissions. He's got 3 victories in EFC, 3 victories in his professional career, all by first round submission. First one was by first round rear naked choke. Second one was by rear naked choke as well. Last one was an Americana that he got in the first round. Mounted his opponent pretty early. Found an Americana. Very quick finish. He's taken on Abdurraham Errachidy, who has most notably fought in UAE Warriors. Fought a guy who wasn't very good in UAE Warriors. Back and forth for a little bit. Eventually, Errachidy finds the knockout in the first round. Again, not the most impressed. The guy he fought wasn't very good. And in all fairness, like the guys Steyn's fighting aren't that great either. But Errachidy's never fought anybody all that good. And I want to bring you back to his one fight in Brave. I know that was 2 years ago, but he got subbed in Brave in the first round. Steyn's entire thing is submissions. And sure, on the feet, yeah, Errachidy's going to have the advantage. But I mean, you're taking on a guy who's a pure grappler who does nothing but grapple. I'm serious. Like it's like Ben Askren levels of, I'm so glad Ben Askren's doing better, by the way. But it's Ben Askren levels of, I'm really not looking to strike with you. And obviously he's nowhere near the level of Ben Askren, but I'm purely going there to grapple with you. I'm looking for a submission, and I'm looking to, again, just not lay on top of you, but I'm looking for subs. A little different from what Askren did. Askren obviously went for submissions, but, worked ground and pound more on the ground. Anyways, I think Steyn's going to win this fight fairly easily. Again, I've seen Errachidy sub before, and I think this fight should be no different. Again, Steyn, I guess I can make a Kelvin Gastelum comp. I'm a little bit confused on his weight because his last fight was at welterweight. And I assume that was at welterweight. He's 5'7", so yeah, you shouldn't be fighting welterweight at 5'7". Like, that's literally a Kelvin Gastelum type thing. Kelvin Gastelum, I mean, fought middleweight at 5'9", 5'10", 5'9", I believe. So he's at 145 pounds now, which I am a little bit intrigued to see what he looks like at 145 pounds, because everything I've seen is him at 170. But I think it should translate. That's a big cut, man. I just assumed Steyn wasn't cutting weight. That's kind of what I have to assume. But going down, I mean, you're skipping lightweight. That's 25 pounds down. We'll see. I think Steyn, the South African, gets it done against the Moroccan fighter, Errachidy. I'm going with Steyn to advance to the second round of the featherweight tournament. Give me him to win by first round sub. On to our next fight. Let's go to a matchup here, and a good one, honestly, in the featherweight division. Walker Nsamo taking on Dwight Joseph. I don't know if this winner is going to be fighting Steyn next. I need to check the bracket. However, this is interesting because you get Dwight Joseph, who is a fighter. Winner of this fight will not be fighting Steyn. That will be the main event winner between Ocheme and Camara. Will be fighting Steyn. Anyways, we get Dwight Joseph and Wilker Nsamo in this one. I think this is a real intriguing bout. I think it's one of the tougher ones to pick. I think the feature bout of this card might be even tougher, and we'll get to that later. But this one's good. You get Dwight Joseph here, who trains out of trains out of Team Alpha Male in Sacramento, California. This guy who's fought in Uriah Faber's A1 combat. He's fought in the Contender Series before. Has a win over Jay Perrin, who you probably know Jay Perrin for, the guy who was talking shit to Raul Rosas when Raul Rosas was 18, or was he still 17? He was 18. And when Raul Rosas subbed him in the first round on International Fight Week, that's Jay Perrin. Dwight Joseph beat Jay Perrin on the Contender Series, never ended up getting a shot in the UFC, unlike Perrin, who eventually made his way in. I believe Perrin got in on a short notice. Anyways, Dwight Joseph, since winning on the Contender Series in 2019, is 4-1. The only loss to Eric Shelton on Caged Aggression in March of 2023. This guy who hasn't fought in a year. Last fight was in 2024 for that Uriah Faber A1 Combat Championship. It was his first defense of the belt at 135 pounds. Now here he is in the PFL, fighting up a weight class at 145 pounds. Again, Dwight Joseph is a veteran, fought in LFA in the past. He's just been around. He's 35 years of age, but he has probably more experience, I believe, than anybody else on this card, and honestly, probably has the best gym, I would say, honestly, too. Like, this is a guy who trains with Uriah Faber, or at least in that Uriah Faber camp. He's from Liberia, which is a fascinating country, by the way. I watched a video about Liberia. This is a quick side note. I watched a video about Liberia years ago. Liberia is like, they're just like the United States in Africa. It's really interesting. Like, they have their own basketball league. They call it the LBA, the Liberian Basketball Association. Really interesting country. I believe they speak English. They use U.S. currency. I don't know. I was fascinated by watching a video about Liberia. Their entire name is Liberia, Liberty. Anyways, Dwight Joseph from Liberia, now obviously living and training out of Sacramento, California. He's taking on Wilker Nsamo, who is born in Angola but trains in Brazil now. So this is a guy with really good submissions, really good grappling. One of the areas I've seen his last bout, can he beat the older Dwight Joseph in this one? Because Wilker Nsamo is undefeated. I don't know. This is one of the tougher ones to pick on the entire card because I could easily see a way that Dwight Joseph wins this fight. He's experienced. He's had all the resources at Top Team, at Team Alpha Male in Sacramento. He's been around. He's won the Contender Series before. However, though, he is going to be 36 next month. Actually, next week, he's turning 36. So he's almost done at the age of 35, or at least almost done with the age of 35. And he's not very active. But Nsamo isn't either. This is going to be a clash of styles. It is. Dwight Joseph's going to win on the feet, and Wilker Nsamo is going to win on the ground. Nsamo hasn't beaten anybody, but I kind of want to pick him because he's 29. He's much younger. I don't know. Going into the video, I was planning on taking Dwight Joseph. I think Joseph's got decent enough defensive skills grappling-wise. The Eric Shelton loss. Eric Shelton, obviously, former UFC name. I'm going to go with the veteran. I'm going to go with Dwight Joseph. I do think, again, he's seen more in the cage before. He's the most experienced guy on this entire card. He's the only guy who has fought in Zuffa before, which, again, that doesn't mean much, but has fought in the Contender Series and won on the Contender Series. I think he wins in the feet, and I think it's just primarily up to if Joseph can stuff takedowns and keep the fight at the range that he wants. And ultimately, I do believe he's going to be able to do that. So I'm going to go Dwight Joseph to win by unanimous decision. Again, clash of styles, Nsamo, again, a guy from Angola, training out of Brazil. You know the jiu-jitsu is going to be there. I think Joseph, though, has seen that before, obviously. And I think Dwight Joseph, who is going to be turning 36 next week, I think he does win the bout. I'm going to go with Dwight Joseph to beat Walker Nsamo by unanimous decision. Okay, let's move on now to our next, I believe, our fifth. Yeah, our fifth of the video. Let's go to a matchup here between Wasi Adeshina, the Nigerian Jaguar Panther. The Nigerian Jaguar taking on the Congo's own in Jean-Jacques Lubaya. Lubaya now fighting out of, I believe he's out of the Congo now, last I checked. I think, I'm not sure. I know Adeshina, though, training out of Sweden. This is interesting. Lubuya's last fight, it was EFC who posted it, I believe. Yeah, it was EFC posted it. It wasn't the best fight. It was a co-main event on an EFC card. He actually lost that bout. And the title of the video is Fight of the Night. Lubaya versus Skalutu, I believe is the guy he fought. Interesting bout. Lubuya's losing, though. He really is. And I don't know much about his opponent in that bout. In Ken Skalutu, who's from Zambia, who's undefeated 6-0. Might make you beg the question, why isn't he on this card? It's okay. But Lubaya is getting beaten to the punch every single time in that fight. Like, Skalutu's first. He's the one landing the jab. I don't know. Everything before in Lubuya's career hasn't entirely impressed me, nor has Wasi Adeshina impressed me, though. You know, I've watched what he's done. Lost in Cage Warriors before. Back-to-back victories in the FCR promotion. Hasn't fought since February of 2024. It's coming off a victory over a 7-1 guy. I believe, was he Georgian, I think? Yeah, a Georgian fighter who he beat who's 7-1. Not horrible. I just don't know what to make out of Lubuya's last fight because of the fact that, okay, he fought a good guy, you know? And everyone he's beat before, he's looked good, had a split decision in his last win, but, you know, I don't know how good those guys are. And for Adeshina as well, I mean, other than his last victory over the Georgian guy he beat, I don't really know the level of competition he's fought either. Ever so slightly, I'm going to go with the Congo, fighter from the Congo here in Lubaya. I think, again, I don't think his striking was bad. I think he was just getting beat to the punch. And I think he was I don't think it was a skill thing. I just think he wasn't landing first in his last bout. Because, again, he would throw, but his opponent would land first on him every single time. You know? Guy fought in the EFC before, 2 fights over there, which I know doesn't mean the most, right? But has fought in a major promotion in Africa. Adeshina, the level of competition he's beat doesn't really wow me. We're going to see a striking fight. You know? We are. And I think you look at Adeshina's record at 7-3, well, 2 of those losses were his first 2 bouts. Since then, he's 7-1. Lost in Cage Warriors by armbar. Again, I don't anticipate this fight hitting the ground. I think we see primarily a striking fight. Ever so slightly, I'm going to go with Lubaya to win. I believe this is going to be a decision. Not too confident in the pick, though, but I will be going with Jean-Jacques Lubaya to win the fight by unanimous decision. Let's move on to our next bout here. We go to the welterweight division. Osvaldo Benedito taking on Emilios Dassi. I expect someone to get knocked out here. I've mentioned earlier that Foundation Francis Ngannou camp in Cameroon. Emilios Dassi is one of the fighters in that camp. This is a guy who's 4-1, who has shown nasty power and also nasty ground and pound once the fight goes down there too. Dassi's 4-1 professionally. Only loss is to an 0-1 guy, Ibrahima Dosso, coming off a win over Jeremy Etiko in his last one by second round TKO. There's not much film on Emilios Dassi. There's like 1 fight of him on the internet. I don't know. Osvaldo Benedito, 3-1 professionally, fought in the EFC, but 1-1 in the EFC, is coming off a submission win in his last fight. He's going to have a grappling advantage. He will. I think Dassi's going to have the advantage on the feet, too. So, I mean, it's just, again, it's a clash of styles. This is all this is. These are 2 big 170s, man. I mean, Benedito is 6 feet tall. Dassi's 5'11". These are 2 huge dudes for the weight class. Yeah, this fight to me is up to who do you think implements their will first, right? Does Benedito get the fight down, or does Dassi stuff the takedowns and win? Because Dassi's fights, at least the limited things I can find about Dassi, a lot of his ground control is it's based on what he does on the feet for the most part. Again, there's not much film on Dassi, but from what he does, it's a lot of, all right, I'm gonna outland you, panic shot. I'm decent enough with my defensive wrestling so I can, you know, scramble on top and I can finish with ground and pound, or I can knock you down and obviously finish with ground and pound as well. I think Dassi wins. I think because again, Benedito's thing is grappling. He's a 3-1 fighter. Dassi's 4-1. I do believe Dassi can do enough in this fight. I think he's going to stop the takedowns. And if, again, he can keep Benedito on the feet, I very well expect him to knock the Angolan out here. So I think Dassi gets it done. Again, I am going to be riding with this Francis Ngannou camp. Another thing, like, I do believe that this camp that is funded by Francis Ngannou has a lot of resources, has a lot of facilities, should make it easier on the, on the training camp experience for a lot of these fighters. I know, again, that's not the be-all, end-all when we're talking about these fighters, but that's why I took Desmond in his fight. That's why I am going to be taking Dassi here. I believe the training's going to be better. I believe, the weight cut should be easier, again, if it's funded by Ngannou in his home country. And obviously that's just a small part of the fight, but it just makes the entire experience for these fighters easier and one less thing you have to worry about. So I do believe Emilios Dassi is going to win. I think, again, he's got to have seen his fair share of good grapplers. I think he'll be able to keep the fight standing, and if he's able to keep the fight standing, I expect him to win. So I'm going to go with Emilios Dassi to beat Osvaldo Benedito. I think he gets it done by first round knockout. I also have a feeling, guys, the fighters coming out of Ngannou's camp are going to be very hyped up by the promotion on this card. Well, it's not even like a feeling, like I know they're going to be. PFL loves Ngannou. Obviously, he's been their biggest signing ever, other than Jake Paul, who has never fought in the PFL. Anyways, they're gonna hype up Ngannou's guys because Ngannou's gonna be there. This is the first official, just straight up PFL Africa card. So give me Emilios Dassi out the Cameroon to win this fight by first round knockout. Next fight, we move to a matchup here. This is between Sanan Sadeck and Yabna Ninchala at the welterweight division. The winner of this fight will be fighting the winner of our last fight between Dassi and Benedito, so I expect it obviously to be Dassi. Here is Sanan Sadeck and Yabna Ninchala. For Sanan Sadeck, this is a guy training out of Rufus Sport from Burkina Faso, but a guy who has fought in the PFL in the past, lost to Ali Omar on the PFL Challenger Series back in 2023. Since then, he's won 4 consecutive fights. Fought in some regional fights in the US MMA scene that you have probably heard of. United Fight League, Chosen Few, LFA, obviously a big one, and then Anthony Pettis FC. Taking on Yabna Ninchala, the Panther from Guinea-Bissau. I believe that's how you pronounce that. I think that's in Central Africa, I think, if my elementary school geography B skills are doing me right here. Finished 3rd place, by the way. Yabna Ninchala as a 4th grader, too. No, I'm kidding. Well, that was real. But anyways, Yabna Ninchala from Guinea-Bissau, now fighting out of Brazil. This is a guy who very often, very 50-50, okay? Fought notable guys. He has fought guys that we've heard before in the PFL. Lost in UAE Warriors to Yazid Kuchain. Fought Vinicius Sensi. Lost by split decision over in UAE Warriors. Is coming off a victory in Mentola FC against Murilo Dos Santos by second round TKO. However, Dos Santos is a 2-2 fighter. Ninchala hasn't beaten anybody good. Whenever he fights better fighters, he loses. That's just the simplest way I can put this. Sadeck is 7-2 from Rufus Sport. Only losses are on the Challenger Series in 2023 and then to Tyler Veal in his first ever fight in 2021. I'm not concerned, right? Tyler Veal's a guy who is working his way right now in the regional scene. He's undefeated, 6-0 at 28 years of age, right? That's a decent fighter who can never get a finish to save his life. Anyways, Sadeck, 4 straight victories coming off of a first-round knockout victory at Anthony Pettis FC. This guy is solid. He's got a good striking game. Ninchala's he just lost too much for my liking personally, and lost to somewhat competent fighters. I think Sadeck, again, training at Rufus Sport, I think that goes a long way. Ninchala is a huge dude, 470 pounds as well, 6 feet tall. Sadeck 5'9". That does, that does have to come to play a little bit. However, I just think Sadeck's better. I think he sits on his power better. He shouldn't be giving up that much in reach. Like, dude's got long arms for being 5'9". I think the power should be the big, advantage in this fight for Sadeck. I think he's going to win the fight by first round knockout, just because, again, I've seen Ninchala lose to lesser opponents, I think. I don't know. It's hard to rank some of these guys fighting in PFL Mana, right? It just is. Like a Yazid Kuchain, right? Or no, Kuchain's a PFL Europe guy. He just had no success over there. I don't know. Sensi's actually fought in the actual tournament. Yeah. Sensi's loss not bad, but my thing with Sensi was, who did win his last fight in PFL, he hadn't beaten anybody. Like, all of his wins on Sensi's record were, record ineligible guys. I don't know. I'm going to go with Sadeck. Again, I'm going to favor the guy fighting at a Rufus Sport. Just like that more. I'm going to go with Sadeck to win the fight by first round knockout. Next up, we move. I believe this is our feature bout next. It is. So the other one of the really tough fights for me on this card, British Boulang taking on Adina Octave. Octave from Cameroon, but not training out of that Ngannou camp. He is from Nigeria, taking on British Boloyoang, who I believe is training in America. Cause the PFL's website had him with the American flag, but everything on Tapology says he's training out of South Africa. So I don't know. Anyways, Boloyoang, South African fighter. This is a guy who's got good grappling from what I've seen out of him. I've seen him win the EFC with an Americana in the first round, straight up just dominated that bout. Does have one loss back in EFC back in 2021 by second round TKO. Again, this is a guy who's 3-1 professionally. The last win was in November of 2024. Yabanat was in the last fight. Adina Octave, 5-0 professionally, hasn't beaten anybody. Has looked good in his wins, has been dominant in his victories, but hasn't beaten a single named guy. I guess the second fight was against a 5-0 guy, won that fight per naked choke. The 5-0 fighter he beat was very fraudulent, I think. So that's my problem with a lot of these fighters. I just don't know. And now everything I've seen out of Adina, his wrestling looks really good. That's how he just smokes guys. He'll go in there, he'll shoot, and he'll dominate on the ground. And usually it will be via ground and pound that he wins those fights. But Boloyoang, right, his thing is jiu-jitsu, right, for the most part. He's got decent striking, decent kickboxing, but he's got a pretty good jiu-jitsu game. Should make for an interesting stylistic matchup, don't get me wrong. Adina Octave should easily win, though, I think. I wouldn't say easily, because I have had problems with this pick, I think. Just because I am not impressed with the guys the Bantu Warrior in Octave has beat. He hasn't beaten anybody, you know? But yet again, though, right, like, it's not... to a sense, it's not his fault he's fought bad guys so far. It's not his fault. I mean, every guy that they've put in front of him, I'm sure, again, Octave's not the guy hand-picking opponents. It's his team, it's his camp that are picking opponents for him or matchmaking him with certain guys, you know. Not his fault he hasn't been given the opportunity to be a better fighter yet. And we'll see, again, if Boloyoang is that guy. But again, Octave has only beaten one fighter in his professional MMA career with a winning record, which does concern me a little bit. But again, the wrestling looks there, the ground and pound, again, this is a guy who, once he gets the fight down, he's still looking to finish it. There are fighters who, they'll get a takedown, and they'll just be content with top positioning, and they won't do much with it. That's not what the Cameroonian, training out of Nigeria and Octave is going to do. He's going to chase that finish. He's going to look for that finish, and I think he's going to get it in this fight. I'm going to go with Adina Octave to make light work of British Boloyoang. I think he's going to do it by first round TKO. Again, if he does it, I think it's going to be early. This guy who starts off fights pretty quickly, I believe he's going to be able to get it done. Going to be the Bantu Warrior, Adina Octave, to win the fight by first round TKO. We move on to our co-main event of the evening. We've got a matchup here between two former PFL names, Shido Boris Esperanca and Ibrahim Mane. I could have sworn Mane's name was always Ibrahim, but now on Tapology, they have him listed as Ibrahima Mane. I'm just going to call him Ibrahim Mane because everything I've seen before, he's been Ibrahim. Anyways, Shido Boris Esperanca coming off a victory in the PFL over Tyler Hill. That was about a year ago. Won the fight by first round TKO. Went in there and immediately just blitzed his opponent. Immediately blitzed him. Immediately started firing. Eventually got the fight down to the ground and TKO'd Tyler Hill on the ground. As a guy who's supposed to beat, right? Esperanca now 9-1 professionally. Only loss is to Babardine Diani back in UAE Warriors. Diani, right, a PFL fighter, just won his last fight last month. That's not horrible. Esperanca, though, has good stuff, right? He's got good grappling. He's got good enough striking. This is a decent fighter from Angola. Ibrahim Mane is a veteran, though. Okay? This is a guy who's been around. He's 36. So I correct myself. I said that Dwight Joseph was the most experienced fighter on this card. It is definitely Ibrahim Mane. We've seen Ibrahim Mane before on PFL Europe. A couple fights he beat Shanika Noso Pedro at one point. I believe that was either a feature bout or a co-main event in PFL Europe at one point in time. It was a feature bout, but we saw Mane win that fight. It wasn't the most eventful bout. But then his last fight to Daniel Masili by first round TKO over on PFL Europe in September of last year. Obviously, you may know Masili for his last bout where he lost to Omar Al-Dafri, the face of PFL MENA, possibly. But Mane's been around, man. Fought multiple times in Aries FC. Beat some credible guys over there as well. Got good striking, got good grappling. The one hit on him will be once he gets into striking exchanges, he will get hit, and sometimes he will get put down. That's where Esperanca should be able to be successful today. Because I believe Esperanca, in those wild striking moments, should see a lot of success. Or there will be an ability to drop levels or change levels and get that takedown, right? you kind of know who the PFL wants to win, right? Mane, I know, again, myself and everyone might not be the most, we might not know the most about the, African MMA scene. Mane's a guy who I've known he's French. He trains out of France. But he's from Africa. He's been around. He's a named guy that we've heard of before in a co-main event. And I think I know what the PFL is doing here. They've done this before. They want Esperanca to be their big guy at 170 pounds. He will be fighting the winner of the last fight between Octave and Boloyoang in the semifinals of this tournament. They want him to be kind of their guy. And no better way of doing that than having him beat Mane in the first round. Like, we've seen the PFL do this before. We've seen, veterans get thrown out in the first round. I mean, example, Clay Collard, Jeremy Stephens, right? They wanted Clay Collard to beat Jeremy Stephens. He did. Great fight. Clay Collard had that bigger name going forward, right? That's what the PFL does. Hell, last year, they gave Dennis Goltsov Thiago Santos in the first round, right? They want the big names that they sign to lose to their guys. Mane, for the most part, in the PFL Africa scene, is a well-known guy. He's fought in PFL Europe before on a main card over Chinico Noso Pedro, fought Masili in his last bout. Again, though, Esperanca should be able to see great success on the ground in this fight, I believe. I mean, Masili got Mane down and TKO'd him in 86 seconds. I think Esperanca should be able to win this fight fairly easily. I think eventually he will find that TKO. I'm gonna go with Shido Boris Esperanca to win the fight by second round TKO. Again, fighter out of Angola, training out of Angola, taking on the Gambian fighter in Mane, who's now training out the country of France. I do believe Esperanca gets it done. I just think he's got an advantage on the ground in this one. And I do think, again, Pedro does leave spots where he gets hit on the feet. Esperanca should be able to find those marks and be able to find the takedown and drag this fight down when he wants to as well. Give me the Angolan and Shido Boris Esperanca to win the fight by second round TKO. Our main event of the evening, we go to the featherweight division. Patrick Ocheme versus Mohamed Camara. The winner of this fight will be taking on probably Ilbert Steyn, which I don't know if that's a stylistic matchup you want for your guy. Their guy is Patrick Ocheme. Okay, Patrick Ocheme is the guy who, he's the guy in the spotlight in the main event. I'm surprised it actually wasn't the last fight with Shido Boris Esperanca and Ibrahim Mane, but they're going to give Patrick Ocheme and Mohamed Camara the main event. I have no complaints about this because everything I've seen at Patrick Ocheme, this guy's fun. Watch his last fight in EFC. I don't know if his last fight or the fight before. I think it was 2 fights ago in EFC that I watched. No, I believe it was his last fight. It was. The guy he fought wasn't very good, and Ocheme is getting tagged a little bit too much for my liking, but it's okay. Not tagged, but he's getting hit. This is an all-action type of guy. Okay? I don't know what to comp him to. This is... I don't know. It's a weird comp because he goes in there and he just swings, man. He throws, and this is where I think eventually he might lose. I don't think Camara is that guy, and I'll explain why in a second. And I don't know if there's a guy in this PFL tournament that can beat him though. Potentially, if Dwight Joseph gets there, I think Dwight Joseph might be able to have a chance of beating him, just because Joseph's experienced and he's got a good camp around him. However, if Wilker Nsamo wins and goes to the finals, I believe Ocheme is going to be fine. Because here's the thing. I don't think grapplers are going to beat Ocheme. I think he's got good enough grappling, good enough defensive wrestling. On the feet, he just throws. And it's kill or be killed. It is. And it's not like, again, Ocheme, it's not like he's, fundamentally sound. He's a good fighter, but he's not fundamentally sound. He's not high guard. He's not, picking his shots. No. He swings from right here and just unloads. It is straight, Ricardo Lamas, maybe? Nah, I don't know if that's a good comp. It's, it is legitimately, I don't give a damn. I'm going to walk you down. My power is better than your power. Let's throw. It is. It's fun to watch, and that's why he's in the main event, right? Because they are expecting a first-round knockout victory for him. And I think that is going to happen, right? His only loss came back in 2022 by TKO in the third round. Since then, though, 4 straight victories in EFC. 3 of those were by TKO/KO. It's kill or be killed. Mohamed Camara, he's the right guy for the spot because he's going to lose. Coming off a draw in his last fight to Ali Yazbek, lost to Joris Dia by knockout in UAE Warriors back in 2023. This is a guy who's fought once a year since 2021. Since 2020. No, 2021. Yeah, I don't like that. Not an active guy, a guy who can get knocked out, not a very high-level guy, and we all know who the PFL's guy is on this card. It is Ocheme, right? And Ocheme is the guy that they want to win the tournament. Don't get me wrong. He's probably going to have to see some grapplers really soon. He's going to get some interesting tests. But Ocheme is 6 feet tall at 145 pounds. Again, he's a problem. 6 feet tall at 145 pounds. Camara from Guinea, now training out of Brazil. Ocheme, Nigeria, now out of South Africa. Kamara's actually a Nova Nyao guy. He's 5'9" for 145 pounds, which isn't small, don't get me wrong, but Ocheme is just huge for the weight class. He has been fighting at 155 pounds, which does interest me a little bit. Like, all right, you're going down at 145 pounds. What is that adjustment going to look like? Not too concerned. I think Ocheme is going to be all right in this one. Again, the style that he fights, I don't think Kamara's ready for it, and I don't think Camara has the power necessarily to get respect out of Ocheme and, you know, make Ocheme second guess himself in this fight. So everything for me points to a Patrick Ocheme victory. I think he's just the better fighter, and I don't think, again, Camara does not have the striking game to combat him, and I do think it's interesting. Like, we'll see. I don't think grapplers are good enough to beat Ocheme in this bracket. Again, I'm looking at a guy like Wilker Nsamo, who's training out of Brazil, like an Ilbert Steyn, who I think, again, I really need to see him fight in PFL Europe to be confident in his abilities. And obviously that would be the next fight for Ocheme, which I think Steyn would probably just get manhandled, probably. But who knows, right? I mean, that's the fights that we need to see in this bracket, and, you know, talking about this, making this video and talking about these fights does get me excited to see for the rest of this PFL Africa card. Again, I applaud the PFL for doing stuff like this. I think it's great. You know, UFC refuses to go to Africa. The PFL will definitely be in Spain sooner rather than later. Silva is the champion now, so I would expect a PFL Europe card probably not next year in Spain. I mean, they go everywhere the UFC says they're going to, but doesn't, you know? I respect the PFL for this. PFL MENA, PFL Europe, PFL Africa, obviously the main PFL, and then PFL Pacific next year. I would expect another PFL coming up soon. Probably PFL Asia would probably be the next one they would have to hit as well. So I appreciate what the PFL is doing. I think it's fun, and I'm very interested to see what happens in PFL Africa this year. So, folks, thank you all for watching our PFL Africa 2 predictions here on the channel. If you haven't yet, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to comment. If you do disagree with any of the picks, we'll be back later in the week for our UFC Best Bets, and next week for the second PFL Championship card from the Bojangles Coliseum in Charlotte, North Carolina. Main event, Godzilla Rabadanov and Alfie Davis. So, folks, thank you all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more, and Mamba forever.